We are now on Makartplatz. So as to help you find your bearings, I would like to suggest that you place yourself with the church behind you. Now, on an imaginary clock, look at 12 o'clock. Just before, at around 11, you will find a yellow building with white vertical stripes. This is the birthplace of the famous Christian Doppler. His name doesn't ring a bell? You may have missed a lesson in physics. He discovered something very special, which was, of course, called the Doppler effect. Nowadays, we use this Doppler effect to produce sonographic images. Every pregnant woman and father-to-be proudly show sonographic images of the unborn child. The next building across the road is the house where the famous conductor Herbert von Karajan was born. When we now look further to the right, we can see the regional theater, which was called ball house in the past. A ball house was something very special too. Princes and aristocrats, as well as wealthy citizens who could afford it, liked to play a specific ball game. It was similar to badminton. Later on, during the Enlightenment, Archbishop Colloredo had this ball house transformed into a real theater to integrate and educate the average people. Next to the regional theater is the entrance to Mirabel Gardens, which is a must-see for everybody who visits Salzburg. The house on the right, which is now the Bristol Hotel, has also got a very interesting past. Immediately after Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy built here the first power station, which provided electricity for the first few houses in town. The first Congress of Psychology in modern times took place in this newly built Power Station Hotel. C.G. Jung and Sigmund Freud met here and talked to several hundred specialists who came from all over Europe to attend this event. Right behind me is the Church of the Holy Trinity, a building dating back to the time of Archbishop Thun. Here in Salzburg, Bishop Thun was also called the donor, because he did a lot of good things for the town and its citizens. He asked the famous architect Fischer von Erlach, who designed St. Charles Church in Vienna, to build churches and other important buildings in Salzburg. The College of Priests and the Theological School, which are on the left and on the right side of the church, hosted students from the nearby surroundings to be trained as future priests. On the right-hand side of the Holy Trinity Church, we can see Überlacker Palace, which was built a long time ago and which was owned by one of Salzburg's oldest noble families. It used to host a bank, then a post office, and now a bank again. Just next door there's a fairly new house where a garden was previously situated. There's a little story about this garden which concerns a father and his son, both called Sattler. Sattler Senior was an exceptionally gifted landscape painter. He painted a famous picture which is 25 meters long and 5 meters high and was displayed in a rotunda. This sort of painting was called a cosmorama. In those days, photography hadn't been invented yet, which meant that only painters could capture landscapes. Johann Michael Sattler traveled the world. He painted scenes of New York, Mexico City, Egypt and even South America. His Salzburg Cosmorama can be admired in the museum located on Residenzplatz. When we turn right, we can see the old dancing master's house, the Tanzmeisterhaus, which was a kind of dancing school for aristocrats, for noble citizens who were likely to visit the king in Munich or the emperor in Vienna at some point. Of course, they needed to understand how to behave at court, how to dance a quadrille, how to behave at table, how to introduce themselves to the emperor, and how to enter and leave the room. After the old dancing master died, Leopold Mozart and his family moved into the house. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart spent his youth in this building. I'm standing next to a sculpture of Daniel Craig. Tony Craig. Between this sculpture and the church behind me, there was a special building, which was commissioned by the generous Archbishop Thun. He felt sorry for his citizens who got into financial trouble, and he decided to build a pawn shop, which he called Mons Pietatis. It gave people who were in severe financial difficulties the possibility to pledge their valuables for a small sum of money, so as to be able to hold on until times change for the better. The pawn shop fell victim to a technical innovation, the tramway. The first tramways were not as flexible as they are nowadays, and in order for them to turn here easily, the pawn shop had to go. The famous British sculptor Tony Craig created this work of art for the Salzburg Foundation. It symbolizes the chimney of a volcano. Maybe it represents the incredible energy of the city. This square was formerly named Hannibalplatz, after the Archbishop's brother. In the dark years of Salzburg's history, it was called Adolf Hitler Platz. What a relief! It was shortly after World War II that the name was changed to Makartplatz, to remind us of the famous Austrian painter Hans Makart.